let you know that you're not even good enough for your own women?
I mean, it feels freaking horrible. I mean, I was pretty much prepared to live my life single for the rest of my life. Because I'm telling you right now, it's hard. It's extremely difficult for an Asian man to find any woman to be intimate with. Because really, the reality is, I mean, I see a lot of these Asian women going to the whites. And basically, I just see like being an Asian American, I see that as leading towards like the extinction of Asians in America. Where because if the Asian men can't even find any woman, they're just gonna die off, and all the Asian women go to the white man or whatever, then I mean the Asian just ends up becoming extinct eventually. You know what I mean? Then it's just done. And then they close off the borders, they close off the access to America from the east. Then it's like shutting off the Asians from America. You know, and it's very sad to me. I see a lot of Asian women, a lot of them are extremely whitewashed. I mean, to the point where they're like not even, I don't even consider them Asians anymore, because they're just like, there's a lot of Asian women out there that have a lot of self-hatred towards their own race. And that's why it's so hard for Asians to fight against racism, because you got their own people talking trash about their own race. And they give the rights for other people to talk trash about their own race as well, because they're very ashamed of themselves. And they don't want to be Asian. You know, they want to be white. They bow down to the whites. I mean, even the traditional Chinese, like even my parents, I'm sad to say, but they bow down to the whites. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like they accept, it's like the Asians pretty much accept the whites to be superior, and they almost enjoy it. It's like they enjoy them being the master. They don't fight like the blacks do to try to overtake the position of power. No, they accept them as the master, and then they're like, hey, you know, it's like I'm telling you, there's Asian families out there that pray for their daughter to marry a white man, because then to them that's wealth or something like that. They don't want nothing to do with even their own race, because that to them that's like they're just marrying a poor person. So they're looking at a mentality of like riches, where like where they'd rather have the woman marry an Asian or a white man, so then it brings more wealth into the family. You know, so it's very disappointing. I have a lot of Asian friends in the past. I'm telling you, like none of them have girlfriends. I mean, they're all like lonely as hell, and like they don't get no hugs, get no kisses. I mean, they're just like lonely as hell, and it's sad. Like how many Asian men that I know can't even find a female. You know what I'm saying? It's really sad. And for me, I'm surprised I even found one. But I mean, it's hard to find a woman out there, because not only do you have your race against you, but you also got your height. I mean, Asian people are small. So I mean, a woman, she don't want to date no short dude. She want a tall guy. She want a tall white guy, tall black guy. She want a rich man. And she want, you know, she don't want nothing to do with her own race. That's from my, you know, from my experiences. And I got a sister, you know, and she pretty much had that mentality, you know, as well. But, you know, now she's with somebody that's like half white, half Asian. But she had that mentality as well. You know, she would only date white guys. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's a lot of and you see like a bunch of Asian women with white guys. You know, they don't even mess with their own people. You know, and an Asian guy to get with a white woman, shit, that's never gonna happen. Or an Asian guy getting with a black woman or whatever other race, it's very difficult. So it's like Asians can't even get women of their own race. They can't get in from other races either. So it's just kind of like they're just the ones that don't get nothing. You know, so it's a sad thing, very sad. You know, and you look at the media though. Look at Hollywood. I mean, there's no Asian American that people look up to, other than Bruce Lee, who died like 40 years ago. But which Asian American in Hollywood actually has respect? Like a Denzel Washington or a Will Smith or like a 50 Cent or like a Ludacris or like a Usher. I mean, where's the Asian American that's getting respect out there? None of them.
Jackie Chan and
No. Jackie Chan is a clown. He's a clown. He's not Asian American. Jackie Chan's fully Chinese, coming from China. And so is Jet Li. Jet Li barely even speaks English. He's coming straight out of China. You know, so, no, that's not even, there's no Asian American. Bruce Lee was truly, he was Asian American. That's the only one. And maybe Donnie Yen is Asian American. But they all have to go back to China to get fame. You know, so I don't see no respect going out there for the Asians at all. I mean, Asian Americans. You know what I mean? You got a lot of successful, successful blacks out there. I mean, look at the whole NBA's blacks and NFL blacks. You know, entertainment industry in Hollywood. I just saw the movie just the other day. You know, The Best Man Holidays. All like pretty much all blacks in that movie. You know what I mean? You know, some of the blacks may complain, oh, there's not enough movies with all blacks. But where are the movies where it's all Asian? None. All those movies are coming out of China. You know what I'm saying? There's no Asian American movies. Yeah.
You may feel as if blacks may have it better in the entertainment world, but that's only because we're only accepted in the entertainment world. When it comes to economics and, you know, worldwide views, politics, all of that, we're not widely represented because black people fail in economics. Black people don't have a sense of, you know, knowing how to spend money. You know what I'm saying? You know, Asians to a certain extent is still accepted in a dominant white society. Black people are kind of treated like Mad from Family Guy. We're just somebody that everybody hates. If I was to ask Gus his nationality, where did he come from, what language did he speak before slavery, he's not going to tell you because we don't know that. We don't know that. Our culture, our identity, our history, everything about us has been stripped away from us. A lot of people don't even realize the Egyptians were black. A lot of people don't realize this. Everything was stripped away from us. So as an Asian, to a certain degree, you are accepted in dominant white society. You are.
I think
and white supremacy affects Asians in China so much that they depict black people the same way whites used to depict black people in the minstrels, in the early cartoons in the 40s. But when it comes to racism, I don't think Asians are affected by it as blacks are because it's more targeted to us.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke...
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there was once a Black Wall Street that was destroyed because whites was afraid that blacks was doing better than them economically. And most people have this misconception of black culture. Most people think that black culture is rap. And it's like the late, I forgot his name, Heavy D said, most white producers wouldn't even produce their album because it had to be about drugs and sex and what was going on in the community. I think that most people, if you used to look at black people 40 years ago and look at black people now, black people today are a totally different product of black people back then. 90% of black people at historical black colleges receive college degrees. Black America today is socially engineered. It's made up. It's been plagiarized. It's been created. The way we act, the way we talk, the way we dress has been made up by society. We look different from everybody. There's nobody else on the planet that look the way we do. We are a rare breed of people. We're the only people that have the hair texture we have that look the way we look. Black people live in a world alone. We live in a world that everybody looks different from us. Everybody has straight hair. The only people on the planet with woolly hair, that's the most rarest kind of hair on the planet. You won't find it with any other race. That's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate it. We'll make sure we get all the folks who have calls in. The person who dialed in, this is 18-4. I thought she figured out how to use the free HD line. Maybe she didn't. 1804, did you have a question for Mr. Lee? Your line should be open. Some static on your line. I can hear you, but there's a lot of like background interference. Oh, it cleared up. Try again.
Okay, how about now?
Still a little staticky.
All right, well, I'll try to call back. This is the 18 line, though?
Oh, okay, that is the HD line. The clarity will depend on the strength of your signal. I don't know if you're in a spot where you're getting a good clear signal or
So
what
what
have
I'm
you.
asking is, I actually got a question. I can't tell if I'm calling from a call or something line. So we might have to.
I had a hard time hearing. I think you were asking something. Can I tell the difference when you call in from an HD line or a cell? I think that was your question.
Yeah.
I thought you were calling in from your cell phone.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just call back, okay? I'll just call back.
Okay. Right on. We'll look out for her. I think this is Praz. I hope I have my lines correct. Praz, is this you?
No, this is Shadow.
Darn. Go ahead, Shadow. Good to hear from you, sir.
No problem, man. How you been?
Right forwardly.
All right, then. Yes, I just wanted to say to Mr. Lee, I live in D.C. area now, but I used to live in Chicago, and I used to actually work at the UIC Medical Center. And some of the things that he says about Asian, a lot of the workers at the hospital, the nurses, and some of the medical staff were Asian, and we did have one Asian police officer there. And I would agree with him that from what I've seen, Asians tended to keep their head a little low, try not to get into stuff as much. But I would also say that they weren't attacked as overtly as blacks. Blacks fought back more because they kind of had to, just like he said, where they harass you, they arrest you, and what he said about once they target you like that, the HR departments where they start looking for any little thing that you do, I've definitely seen that happen to all types of non-white people in the university system at UIC, which I would guess is very similar to Northwestern's system. And the only thing I wanted to ask him was, you said that the HR department, once you complained, like you said, it was set up to protect the old boys system. Can you specifically name many of the things they started like looking out or writing you up for to get you out of there?
Well, it's like it's not just my instance, but there's like instances of people that also complained in the past, like not just officers but other university workers. Because I made contact with other Asian American workers at Northwestern that suffered discrimination and racism as well, and then they were trying to work close with me and my lawyer to try to fight back, but it was pretty much the same exact stuff that was going on. So basically, once you start complaining, they keep a log of you, and then what they do is they'll tell the supervisors pretty much like they need to like discredit you. So they need the supervisors to really like hone down on everything that you're doing. Like if you come late or something too much, or like if you come, just like whatever it is, like they'll find something, like things that normally would be let go, like where it's not a big deal, they make it a big deal. You know what I mean? It's just it's like, I mean, it's just like that's what was going on. I mean, I had an incident, for example, that happened at my home where the police had to the police ended up getting called to my home, for example, and then they found out about it immediately. And I didn't tell them. They found out about it immediately, and then they confronted me about it, and they pretty much put that in my file. You know what I mean? They would find whatever they can. I mean, I had to be perfect. I had to be literally perfect in everything that I did. You know what I mean? There was no room for mistake. They would write me up as soon as they had the opportunity. And that's their aim, was to discredit me and everything. And it was set up that way. I mean, it was just like, it's just a system that's designed to like, basically what the HR is. They didn't even tell me that EEOC existed. I didn't even know that EEOC existed. They labeled the HR in Northwestern. They labeled it the EEO office, And then the government office is EEOC. I thought I was going to EEOC, but no, I was going to just the Northwestern one. What they do is they don't want you to go to the EEOC because in the EEOC there's like a time limit. I think there's like 180 days or something that you got to complain by. Otherwise, like it's thrown out. So basically, they never even told me about the EEOC. I didn't even find out about the EEOC until I got fired, and then I contacted my lawyer, and he told me about it. You know, it was just like the EEO over there is just designed to protect the university. Because really, if you experience discrimination and racism at the workforce, you're supposed to go directly to the EEOC. And that's what the state, and then they will conduct their investigation. And then that's what's going to really affect the university. But once you go within the university, they're there to protect the university. So they see you as a threat. They don't want you to go to the EEOC. They didn't tell me nothing about the EEOC. Nothing. You know, they're just like, oh, you know, like what can we do to help? And they're just basically, just trying to contain all the racist incidents within the university, so then the EEOC does not find out. You know, so it's there as a way to just like as a decoy, as if this is a safe haven when it's not. I mean, really, they're there to just protect the whole structure of racism. It's there to protect the structure of racism. That's what it is there for. You know, and like it's just sad. I didn't even know anything about the EEOC at all. You know, but yeah, I mean, like being under radar and just having to be perfect. And basically what they do, you know, they'll let their friends go behind closed doors. You know, their friends make mistakes and then they'll let them go. But then if I make a mistake, it's done, you know. Like they'll write me up. You know, I mean, like for example, I got disciplined because I was like 2 minutes late. You know, they verbally disciplined me. Said, if you're late again, we're going to write you up. And then a white officer walks in that's 10 minutes late and they didn't say nothing to him. You know, it's just like that. You know, it's like stuff like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You know, I mean, they'll just like find whatever they can. I mean, because I was almost, I mean, I really watched my back, so I didn't really make that many mistakes, but they were watching. They were like, they kept a really close eye on everything that I did. You know, so, and I knew I was going to be like monitored, you know, and basically it was hard working there because it's like you got people, you know, they're all, and people would like for example, I had a voice recorder that I used to like just basically like rap poetry for my own liking, and an officer found out that I had a voice recorder, and then he accused me of like taping conversations, and he told the supervisor, and the supervisor approaches me about it and says stuff like, you're not allowed to have that. Stuff like that. I mean, the officers were snitching on me over stuff that I didn't even do anything wrong. They're just snitching on me just to snitch on me. And we're not even doing anything wrong. You know, and the officers were basically all like looking at me. Not just the supervisors, but all the officers that I complained against. There was like around seven white officers and supervisors that I had to watch myself from at all times. Because any slip up, they'll tell on me, and then all of a sudden I'm getting like disciplined. You know, so it was bad. You know, it was bad. I mean, it's like you'd almost like rather not. It's almost like before you even get hired, they should just be like, you know what, we're racist, and you know, you're just not gonna get hired because you're not white. That'd be better. Because then it'll be like, all right, fine, I'll just apply somewhere else. But then they're like, no, they act as if, oh, you know, we're equal employment opportunity and we're accepting of minorities. But then once you get in there, they treat you like shit and they freaking like shit on you everywhere. And then they make your work situation a living nightmare. I mean, really, even though I said that, hey, maybe I would have put up with it, I'm not sure if I could. I mean, there'll become a boiling point where I just can't take it anymore, and I'll just snap at them. So. Really, I mean, you can only take so much verbal abuse. You know what I mean? To the point where you're just like, you know, you're not taking it anymore. I took it for 4 years, and then I finally said something. I took it for 4 years. You know what I mean? Normally, like, I worked with some black officers. They're very like assertive. I mean, as soon as anybody disrespects them, they put them right. They put them in check right away. And I learned from that situation. From then on forward, I learned to stand up for myself quicker. I waited too long. I waited 4 years to stand up for myself. But I was supposed to stand up for myself immediately. As soon as somebody says something like disrespectful or like just attacking my race, I had to put them in check right away. But because I didn't put them in check, then they all started jumping on the bandwagon. All the white officers started talking all this trash about me. And it just kept compounding, where they're all teaming up on me, all bashing on me, on my race and stuff. I was like, you know what? I let it get too far. That's what happens. When you're too nice to people, they step all over you. So that's pretty much what happened. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Shadow, did you have another question? I want to make sure we get everybody. Did you have another question, or did he take care of you?
Just really quick. I wanted to ask that when you were working in such a situation, did you feel? Because I've been in such a situation like what you're talking about. Did the stress of coming to work, did it just negatively affect you emotionally?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had to find outlets for it, and what I did was I wrote a lot of poetry and I did a lot of rapping. A lot of my rapping was pretty like dark. I mean, I was like rapping like a lot like Tupac. I was swearing a lot. I would do. That's why I practiced the martial arts. I mean, just like lifting weights, doing push-ups, punching the heavy bag. I mean, that's the way of getting it out. And then, but the lucky thing is, I have a wife, I have kids, and I'm like looking forward to go home because that's where my heaven is. So I go to hell for 8 hours, and I go back home, and then that's kind of like my way to kind of be happy. But I mean, it was really hard going to work. I mean, I go to work and nobody talked to me. Everybody's ignoring me. And then I'm just going to work and I'm just trying to do my thing, and everybody's like putting me under high surveillance. It was bad. I mean, the money was good, but then when you go through that, it's just like, it's just, I mean, it's almost to the point where, I don't even care about the money. I'd rather just get a job where people accept me and are cool with me, and I'll make $10 an hour. That's kind of how I felt. You know what? It's better for you guys to just be honest and just be like, we're racist. We're just not going to hire you. Sometimes I feel like it was better back before Martin Luther King Jr., where they just have signs up like no minorities allowed in here. Okay, fine, then I just won't go there. Sometimes I feel like it would have been better that way. Rather than the way it is right now, they'd be like, okay, we got to take that sign down and act as if we're accepting of minorities when we're really not. And then when we get in there, they start attacking you like crazy. I mean, not physically, but they attack you like verbally. They attack you like psychologically. Like they psychologically damage you to the point where you don't even want to be yourself anymore. You don't even want to be Chinese. You want to be like something else. You know what I'm saying? And that's very damaging because that lasts for many years, if not a lifetime. Because really, if I didn't find the martial arts, I'd probably still have self-hatred for my race. But I actually love my culture and my race. But I had to learn that through many years. And it's sad that you go into a freaking police department and they're like making fun of me as if I'm like they're 5 years old, talking trash about like saying ching chong and chink and all this stuff. I mean, are you serious? I mean, you're a police officer and you got a college degree and you're still making fun of my race like this? The last time I remember that happening was when I was 5 years old. And the little kid made fun of my eyes, like slanting his eyes and stuff, and saying ching chong stuff. That was when I was 5 years old. And then the next thing you know, I'm like in my 20s, and I'm experiencing the same damn thing. I'm like, you know what? It's like this world is not even changing. I mean, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X was here, but I mean, the racism, to me, is almost worse than it ever used to be, because now it's hidden. Now you don't know who the enemy is. You know what I'm saying? Like before, if people put up a sign, all right, no white people allowed, you know that they're the enemy because they already put the sign up. But now, oh, you got to take the sign down. Now you don't know who the enemy is. You know what I'm saying? You don't know who the enemy is. Because there's just like, there's like the inner Nazi, is what I call it. It's like, and it comes in different races. In my point of view, I mean, when I go to the park sometimes, I mean, I got little black kids coming up to me like calling me Jackie Chan and all this other shit. It annoys the hell out of me. I can't stand it. You know what I'm saying? But they're little kids. What am I supposed to do? You know what I'm saying? So I'm getting stuff like that at me at all times. I mean, from black people to white people, and it's just like to the point where I had to live in like isolation to get away from all this. And then I got my YouTube channel, and then you got people typing in some freaking like racist ass comments. And I don't even look at the comments anymore because people say some stupid ass stuff. Oh, Chinese monkey or something like that. Or they say, oh, you know, Chinese people can't lift weights. I mean, say some stupid ass stuff. I mean, there's some racist ass people out there, and you know, and they're hiding behind a computer screen, and you can't do nothing with it. So it all comes out. You see racism all over YouTube. But when you see somebody in the streets, they won't say it to your face. You know what I'm saying? They're too scared to say it to your face. But shoot, when I went to work at the police department, I was so nice to everybody that they did say it to my face, and they didn't get smashed in the face. They didn't get punched in the face. I didn't punch them. I just took it calm. I was like, whatever. I was like, you know what? I'll let it slide. And then they say it again. I let it slide. They say it again. I let it slide. I let it slide for 4 years, and then finally I complain, and then I get fired. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that job was paying me good money. I had a pension lined up, everything. I had 4 kids, and they fired me. You know what I'm saying? They just threw me out in the ditches. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just like a horrible experience. I mean, I'm pissed off at the police. I'm pissed off at the racist people out in this world, and I hate racism with a passion. And you know that's why I like having this YouTube channel, because I can just vent and just be like, you know what, this is some bullshit, but I'm just gonna be honest about it. You know, this is how I feel about it. You know.
Hang tight, Shad. I want to make sure we get the rest of the folks who dialed in with a question. The person, last 4 digits, 1545. 1545. Did you have a question for Mr. Lee? Your line should be open.
Yes. Good evening, Gus, and good evening to your guest. I've been listening to your guest, and I didn't hear his name.
Freddie Lee, Mr. Freddie Lee.
Okay, Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, I want to ask you a question. Why are there so many Asians represented in the education system here? I work at one of the best high schools in New York City, and they are highly represented there. And since we live in a system of white supremacy, I know that the system would stop them from getting an education if they wanted to. So do you have any sense of why Asians are allowed to get into some of these really what you call premier institutions like Harvard, Cornell, Brown, Columbia, places like that?
Why they're allowed?
Hello?
Why they're allowed?
Yeah, why they are allowed. And let me just give you statistics of, now at this good school in New York City, black represent 1%. And I'm telling you, some incredible learning is going on at that institution. And I think Hispanic is about 2%. So, but the rest of the Asian is, I think it's about 50, and white represent the rest. So could you tell me why they are allowed to get into these institutions? Now, a young man just told you a few minutes ago that he mentioned Wall Street, how black folks start their own business, but every time they start something really good, what happens is someone comes in and destroys it. So what I'm asking you, why are Asians able to get into these institutions? Now, I don't want to rest on the thought that they are extremely diligent, smart, and they work hard. I know that. But what I'm trying to say, why are they allowed to come through this racist system, and as the other group are lagging behind? Do you have any sense of that?
Well, my feedback is basically, I mean, it's just kind of like, I compare it to the NBA. I mean, it's performance. I mean, why is the NBA dominated by like 70% blacks? It's because they perform in there. I mean, I watched a video not too long ago.
Can I stop you? But let's face it, getting an education is much more important than bouncing a ball, right? Education is much more important, much more valid than bouncing a ball. Okay? I mean, these kids are learning physics, chemistry, all the tools that they need to operate in the world. So, go ahead.
But I'm using that as an example. I'm using that as an example to say that once you get into these universities, they have specific requirements. Like you have to apply and you have to meet certain requirements. I don't know what the requirements are. You know, that's why people take the ACT or the SATs. I mean, you have to pass requirements to get in, just like medical school or law school. You need to pass certain tests, and whoever passes the test, it doesn't matter what your skin color is. You're supposed to be able to get in if you pass the test. I mean, that's just what it is. So I mean, if a majority,
but they are allowed to develop themselves. This is what I'm saying, and the other groups like blacks, they are not. And I want you to give me an explanation why you think that the Asian are going through. You got some black people out there who are smart too as well, but they are not getting through this educational system as easy as the Asians are.
I mean, I bring it back to the NBA. There's like no Asians in the NBA. Why is that? Well, they're too short to perform. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to like the educational system, maybe the Asians are just better. You know, they're just naturally like good at like book smarts, and that's what they're good at.
I'm not criticizing the Asian. You've been talking about the system, what it did to you, and I'm just trying to figure out whether or not there's a reason from the top that they are letting you guys go through, because they can hinder your progress, you know. They can hinder that if they wanted to. If they didn't want you there, they could stop it. Right?
And,
are we in agreement?
I mean, I've heard somebody email me say something to the effect of where there are Asians that are getting like exceeding the test scores, and then they're not even allowing them in. So I've heard that. But another thing is, when it comes to the Asian international students, I think it's a money thing, because they have to pay more money when it comes internationally. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these Asian students that are coming from overseas, they got to pay like maybe double the price of like if they lived in the States, and that's why they let them in. It's more of a business thing. They're in the business of making money. So if somebody from China wants to come into a college over here, they're going to have to pay twice as much. And that's why they let them in here, because they want to make the money. It's a business thing.
Yeah, but I'm also talking about the good high schools here in New York City. These kids, their parents are already here. So, and I'm trying to just distinguish why they are allowed to go through and the other groups aren't. That's all I'm trying to. I thought maybe you had your finger on that. And I just want to make a comment. When I'm at that school, if I close my eyes, I don't know who's talking, a white girl or an Asian girl. And you are right, they are copying and trying to be European as much as possible. And the Asian male is being feminized. That's what I see.
Yeah.
Highly, like in our community, some black men are being feminized. I see Asian men, they are being feminized too.
But you know what I see is like, if you gotta.
And I think you need to think about that, because you think that we have all this power. Blacks are still not allowed to get an education in this country. And I'll tell you, I've gone to black schools. I'm a school teacher. I had somewhat of the same experience that you had, making a lot of money, and they threw my behind out on my head. And I'll tell you, those schools where blacks are, that black attend, they're not worth it. It's like, we're not being educated. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Why did they allow you guys to become educated and they still stopping us from being educated?
Well,
that's all.
When I think about it, it could be the community. I mean, say for example, like I live in Chicago, and the Chicago schools are horrible schools, but that's where all the projects are set up. And then you have all the blacks in the Chicago schools, and the Chicago schools are garbage. But then you got some like Evanston, where they got a lot more money, or Skokie where they got a lot more money, so their schools are good. So basically, if you put your family in a good neighborhood, then you're gonna get good education. But because if the family can't afford much, like a nice home, then they're stuck in the bad neighborhood, and then they get poor education. So it's more about like the Asian like parents are able to save their money in a certain way to be able to get their children in the right location, and that's why they get access to those schools. I mean, luckily.
Yeah, but black folks, even if they have that money, still there's going to be a problem with them getting their kids into those schools.
I mean, I don't know.
As I've said before, you guys are being given a pass to these good schools, and I want to know why. Because as I said before, if they didn't want you to get an education, they would stop you. The same way they stopped us for so many years, and they're still stopping us from getting an education now. All black folks need to do is just wake up and know that we're not getting an education. This integration bull, that was baloney. I mean, black schools were better before we integrated. But I feel you with the job situation. As I said before, I went through some similar situation that you went through, and I couldn't get my job back. And that's all I have to say, Gus. Thank you. And thank your guest, Mr. Lee. Thank you for coming on the show.
Appreciate it. Person that dialed in 26. Oh, this is our caller in Florida. Caller in Florida, your line should be open.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings, Mr. Lee.
Hello.
Yes. I was listening to you, and you sounded very passionate on your situation. Do you recognize your experiences of racism, white supremacy, as yourself being a victim of it?
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I'm just trying to find out. Do you think that makes sense? By being you, the different very unpleasant things that you had to go through, that you would identify yourself as a victim. Okay. In that case, I am aware of an author who has put together a book for victims of racism, white supremacy, that would kind of like he has suggestions that would perhaps assist a non-white person like yourself on their experiences, so they can have a basically improve their understandings of it. Would you be willing to read a book of that nature?
I mean, I would, but I just don't really have much time in my life schedule to even read much. But I mean, it's something that I can mark down and keep in definitely in file, for a time when, if I do have more time to read.
Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure Gus would have information on Mr. Neely Fuller, and he can give you that information on his book. Is specifically designed for victims of racism and white supremacy, non-white people who are victims of racism and white supremacy. And I didn't want to go forward and call you a victim, because some non-white people don't identify themselves as victims. And I think I heard you say that you do identify your experiences as being a victim of racism and white supremacy. And I'm sure that Gus has Mr. Fuller's information, whereas you can get his guidebook, and it would perhaps organize some of your your thoughts based on your experiences that you passionately have been talking about on the program today.
Okay, thank you.
Just emailed it to him. For those who did not get the email, producejustice.com, Neely Fuller Jr., his books for victims of racism, white supremacy. Again, producejustice.com, Neely Fuller Jr. Great information. You can get the word guide and the code book. Lots of suggestions and definitions. Very important definitions. Person that dialed in, last 4 digits. Oh, okay, it was 1804. We'll try again. 1804. Still a little static. Whoa.
Better now?
I can hear you much clearer, but there's still some static on your line. Oh, now I can't hear you. Volume, at first your volume was high.
Can you can you still hear the static?
I can hear you much clearer now.
Okay, great. So my question to the guest tonight, welcome to the show. And this is a show where people like you who have had terrible experiences with racism
Volume went back down.
Okay, how about now? Justin's been holding this show now for years. I just wanted to ask you, what percentage of Asian women are marrying non-Asian men, and specifically white men?
I don't know the percentages because I don't really look into that like that. I'm just basing it off on my experiences of like the people that I interact with and what I see around me. So I don't know the percentages.
I had a very similar experience to you. Hearing you talk about your experience with in the police department reminds me of my own experience. However, my experience was in a different field where Asians actually are more of an in-group than blacks. That is law. And so I had a job at a firm for several years, and around the same mark that you left, I left too. And HR played the exact same role that you're talking about, where HR was just there to make sure the firm didn't get sued. And so any black person or any non-white person found that they were specifically working with HR, same thing. They just found themselves more scrutinized, they could make mistakes. So hearing you talk about your experiences, like having a flashback, and it's here that it's the same experience that an Asian person, I think a lot of black people find that Asian people, they don't think that Asian people go through racism. They don't think that Asian people go through racism in the same way, but it was just start to kind of see how everything described was very similar to what I had gone through. So thank you for your honesty in describing the phenomena. And I think it's very normal for us. I think it's a great to be honest about these things. Sometimes people are ashamed, and any non-white people, not just black people. It's hard to be honest about these things, and I think that it starts with the honesty. And I can also see that you seem very confused when all this happens. And I think that's part of what the anger is all about, is that indeed, in the way it is now, where we think that we're free, and we think that racism is over, and we think that civil rights happened, and all this stuff is still taking place. And I think that's because basically after the civil rights movement happened, all that happened is that the system of white supremacy became more refined. It didn't go away, it just became more refined. And so before they could call you get away with it, and everybody knew that they were racist, now they have to act like they're not racist. But then they have to have an HR office that's going to do everything to still do the dirty work of disparaging the victim of racism. So anyway, I know Gil doesn't like comments too much, but I just feel like I had to say this. And I hope that you found this visit to the show constructive. And for me, it was very constructive to hear your experience, because in my field, Asians definitely are taken much more seriously. There are also victims of racism, but they're definitely taken much more seriously than blacks. So your experience was reversed, where you felt like blacks were taken more seriously in the police department, but in my experience, in my field, it was definitely blacks were at the bottom.
I didn't really hear a question, but
I'm done.
I know, man. I don't know. If you had any feedback, if you had a response you wanted to give, that's fine. If not, we had other people who had questions. Do you have a response?
I mean, I'm just thankful for what she said. I mean, I understand where she's coming from, and yeah, I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to share some of my experiences, and some people appreciate it. So thank you.
Person that dialed in from a blocked number, your line should be open. Caller from a blocked number.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, Mr. Lee, and Gus, and Cows, people that are listening and all. Yeah, I wanted to concur. The caller mentioned reading the